Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up? MCR family. Another weekly edition of the show live on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and all the like. Should be a fun show today. A lot of fights to get to and break down. We had a couple fights, obviously, last weekend. Fights coming up this weekend. Some minor news. Manny Pacquiao in the news, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Those guys in the news. Just minor news topics on today's show. And obviously, I'm Matthew Hunter. Find me right there at the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff. And without further ado, let's get to my co-host, the one and only Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you?
I am good. The Ranger game is 8-7 in the third inning. So it's like Little League baseball. But besides that, it's opening day, but we got a lot of good boxing news to get into. And I'm so glad I talked up how good Devin Booker was on last week's show. Because I don't know if any of y'all watched the Suns game yesterday. My goodness, can that boy score?
Who do we compare to Devin Booker again? Who was it?
I said Booker was to...
Someone in the chat, remind us, please. Gary has an awful memory, and I get by too much. So come on.
I compared it to a box. Oh, it was what's her name? Were we talking about Serrano? Whoever we were talking?
Was it? No, it wasn't Serrano. Katie Taylor?
Katie Taylor, probably. Yeah, I said LeBron was to Clarissa as Devin Booker is to Katie Taylor.
That's so wild. That's such a bad comparison.
It's not.
Kawhi Leonard's probably a better comparison.
No, she's not Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is the next best two-way player in the league. So no.
Anyway.
Pursuit beat her twice.
Okay. And?
So she's not Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard played LeBron in the finals twice, and he's 1-1.
All right. Anyways. Okay,
Kawhi is so good.
She is far closer to Kawhi than Devin Booker. She's a top 4, top 5 female athlete.
Devin Booker scored 45 points yesterday on about 20 shots.
Devin Booker is a top 20 player in the NBA.
LeBron James says he's the most disrespected player in the league. He's the most disrespected player in the league. He's the second best scorer in the league behind Durant. So when Durant's hurt all the time, right now, he's the best scorer in the league. If I need one guy to get me a bucket, it's him.
Where do you put Devin Booker?
As a player?
Top 10 in the league right now?
Right around. I'm going to have to go through it, but 10 is about it. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there.
All right. Anyways, let's get into it, guys. Gary, obviously, you watched fights this last weekend.
I watched a lot of fights this past weekend.
I'll be honest, guys. I've been quite busy with a variety of things. I did not watch all of the fights this last weekend, including the Amanda Serrano fight, which obviously we debated on in the last show quite a bit. So I didn't see that. I'll be quite honest. The fight I did see, obviously, was the Dylan Whyte and Povetkin card. I watched that card. So let's start there. Dylan Whyte, basically just hit the repeat without losing in the 5th round, right, with Povetkin, because the first 4 rounds were almost the exact same as the first fight. And this is, I think, one of those indicators of, it's the heavyweight division. When you're in that top 10 space, you can get clipped by these guys and you can get dropped by these guys. It's 9 out of 10 times who's going to win that matchup. It's probably Dylan Whyte. But that first fight ended a certain way. Gary, your thoughts on the main event, Dylan Whyte, Povetkin, your thoughts on where Dylan Whyte goes next, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I said Dylan Whyte had, in the first fight, I thought Povetkin did better in the first round. He at least landed some body shots. You could see that Povetkin in the first fight had a game plan to go to Povetkin's. Povetkin had a game plan to go to Whyte's body, and it worked to some degree. And then he landed the knockout shot when it looked like he was about to lose. And I said Whyte had to try to do that. Had to try to get to Povetkin's body, and he couldn't let him off the hook. Right when he get Povetkin hurt, make him pay. Don't let him off the hook. And that's what he did. I thought it was a much better performance. In retrospect now, I think perhaps the first fight with Whyte, he was overlooking it. He was not as motivated for it. He's coming off a long layoff. Perhaps he wasn't really that into it. And then when he got knocked out, it was like a wake-up call. Because I thought Whyte looked much better in the second fight than he did in the first fight.
Definitely a lot more focus. His performance was a lot more clean, a lot more disciplined. Even they were saying that in the commentary booth, like this was a far more composed pace from Dylan Whyte than the first fight. That's absolutely the case. Any sort of thoughts on like Povetkin being too old, COVID, having COVID for a long time, that affecting his performance, wear and tear, all that stuff. Is Povetkin done with the sport? Thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't. Again, I haven't examined him medically. I don't know if he has any lingering long-term effects from COVID. He is 40, but he's only 40. I mean, that's old for boxing. It's not old for life, right? Like, you're not an old man. I'm almost 40. Rob is well past 40. I think he's 41.
I think he's 40.
Is he 40?
I think he's 40.
He only looks 65.
Only.
I wanted Rob to be on today because I wanted to big up his boy Zach Parker because he destroyed Vaughn Alexander.
Not Cheeseman?
Not Cheeseman. Okay, Cheeseman looked fine.
He
Cheeseman looked good, right? Yeah.
He looked really good.
Yeah, he did.
We're going to get to the Cheesemans in a bit, but for Dylan Whyte, what do you want next for him? I mean,
it's going to be tough.
What's realistic for him next? Why should be the actual question here?
I know it's not realistic, but I can't figure out why it's not realistic. Why is Wilder not realistic? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's not. I get that it's not. I just don't really understand why it's not.
I think because, one, you can argue that there's a better in-house fight to make than the Whyte matchup. Andy Ruiz coming off the assumed victory.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about it later on, Wilder Fury. That's not going to get finished in terms of the legal issue till May, is what Bob Arum said. The Andy Ruiz fight is it in April, or is it this month, or is it next month?
It's the end of this month. It's April 24th.
Yeah, it's the end of this month. So it's not that the Dylan Whyte fight is not realistic or that it's not a good matchup. It's absolutely a good matchup. It absolutely is realistic in a sense. But there is another matchup that is arguably better and is objectively a far easier fight to make.
It's a far easier, but you're right. That fight's the end of this month. I'm thinking the time frame's not going to line up, but you're right. It would just be Ruiz's next fight.
They can schedule it for
come back the summer, July, August, something like that. August would probably, yeah.
Because let's be honest, Chris Arrow is not going to give him any issues.
No, but he'll stand up. I mean, Arrow's a tough guy. He'll go rounds, maybe, right? 6 rounds, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Matthew D'Souza, this is the matchup I was thinking of. Whyte versus Joyce Usyk winner. That, to me, is the far more plausible next fight for Dylan Whyte. Wait out and see what happens with Joyce Usyk and pick up the winner of that fight. Because otherwise, you're taking a step back, which, I mean, he can do. If he wants to take a tune-up in the meantime, he absolutely can do that, take a paycheck. But there's nobody ranked above him that is free right now, that is available for a matchup. That is non-existent. So he's either going to have to take a tune-up or wait for one of these guys to pick up a win. I'm thinking it's going to be Joyce Usyk for the same reason why I think Wilder Andy Ruiz is more likely to happen than Wilder Whyte. It's in-house fight.
What I would say is if you're Whyte or Usyk and you have a world title fight guaranteed for you, a world title shot guaranteed for you, why would you go ahead and risk it against a guy that can beat you?
No. Well,
let's say Whyte beats. Let's say Usyk beats Joyce. He has a world title shot waiting for him, in theory, at least.
Oh, it's not a world title shot. It's
mandatory.
Interim belt, right? It's interim belt. Yes.
And then so does Whyte. Whyte has a title shot waiting for him as well, on the WBC side. Why would you fight each other and risk that, and that huge payday that comes with fighting Joshua or Fury?
Because my honestly, that's a good line of questioning, because obviously, knowing the sport, the promoters, networks, and sanctioning bodies will do everything in their power to not have that matchup, because they're 2 separate mandatories, 2 separate sanctioning bodies. Therefore, that's 2 separate paychecks for everyone involved instead of 1 paycheck. We know the financial reasons why that fight would be hard to make in some sense. However, Dylan Whyte Usyk is without doubt a money fight in and of itself. Right, like that's a monster UK pay-per-view that should do bigger numbers than the Tony Bellew pay-per-view, if I had to guess, which did around 700, 800,000 pay-per-view buys in the UK. So this is a $1 million+ pay-per-view buy event Whyte versus Usyk. So, in a weird way, the answer for why this fight isn't going to happen or why it would happen is the same. It's money. The executives involved would probably want these guys not to face each other because they want them to each face Joshua respectively and probably consecutively as well. But the individual fighters realize I can make some big, big money before the AJ fight. And if you're Usyk, you may think Dylan Whyte's a slow fighter. He's a plotter. I can dance around and win decision. And
both guys think they win, and Dylan Whyte, he's a cruiserweight. I'll just knock him out.
Exactly. So it's in the fighter's mind. If I had to guess, it's a little bit, low risk in a sense because the other guy is so beatable in their mind, and it's a high reward fight. It's a huge money fight.
I would say Whyte is more confident than Usyk because Whyte's like a better version of Chisora, right? Like Whyte's a better, like they're both big, massive. Chisora, Whyte, I think he's a little bit better version of Chisora, and Chisora gave Usyk trouble. Like if I was Usyk, I would say, nah, that's not worth the risk. I'd rather fight Parker. Can we get Parker?
Matthew D'Souza mentioning Parker right now, but not for Usyk, for Dylan Whyte. Saying, let's all be honest, we're getting Whyte versus Parker in October in the O2 at London. That's absolutely reasonable as well, and I wouldn't mind the matchup. Again,
right, if he gets to fight Parker again, I get to fight Gassiev again as heavyweight.
Oh, come on.
I said Gassiev was going to be a heavyweight champ at some point. I regret saying that because he's fought 1-2 in a fight in 3 years.
You in the chat saying Whyte versus Usyk 1 million pay-per-view in the UK. What are you smoking, Matt? Tony Bellew, motherfucker, and Hugs and Usyk did 800,000 pay-per-view buys in the UK. Dylan Whyte is objectively a bigger star than Tony Bellew. Has done far more pay-per-views. Has headlined far more pay-per-views. Yeah, I mean, it's without doubt that this matchup would do bigger than that matchup. And I think it's a apples to apples comparison too. It's not apples to oranges. It's not like we're comparing the U.S. market with the U.K. market. We're not comparing a guy that's a star or a draw in one market comparative to another. These guys are draws and stars within that market, have a long track record, and they can hit that number without a doubt. I mean, Gary, am I wrong here?
No, I would think it's a bigger fight. It's a bigger fight than Bellew for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even though like both Bellew and Usyk had a lot of momentum at that point, Whyte and Usyk objectively are bigger at this point in time, without a doubt. Jonathan Kerr saying, I think he meant to say Bellew, and it autocorrected. Bellew is a living legend in the UK, unfortunately. Okay, I guess. I mean, maybe a living legend in Liverpool, right? Isn't that where he's from? Maybe that. But Dylan Whyte traditionally has done far better numbers than Tony Bellew. Tony Bellew's only the only reason Tony Bellew became a pay-per-view draw was the David Haye matchups. Right? Like those were big fights in the UK. Yeah. Tony Bellew got a lot of fucking buzz and then went straight into the Usyk fight, who also had a lot of buzz coming out of the World Boxing Super Series tournament and did, blockbuster fucking numbers. And meanwhile, years down the line, Dylan Whyte and Usyk have kept being pay-per-view headliners in the UK. Of course, it's going to do massive numbers. But even the Parker rematch, I think, for Dylan Whyte would do really good numbers. I don't think the first fight did great numbers. I think it did 500,000, I want to say, in the UK. But it was a fun fight. It was probably Parker's most entertaining matchup that we've seen him in. So a rematch of that, I'm down for. And plus, let's be honest, these heavyweights, a lot of them are relatively pretty young. So in theory, we should see a lot of rematches between some of these top 10 guys. Andy Ruiz, Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker, Dylan Whyte. These are all guys under, 35 years old, if I had to, guess it, right? Add in the Winoskis of the world, add in even Usyk. Usyk's 32, 31. He's pretty young relative to the division.
Yeah. So
these guys should all have some rematches and trilogy fights.
The only thing I would say about Usyk is, although he's not old in numbers, I think he's older in how long he can make a run as a heavyweight, because he is small, so he's going to rely on all of his reflexes and agility. And once that starts to fade a little bit, he's done. He'll get knocked out. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think he's gonna fight he's gonna fight at a high level till he's 38 at the heavyweight division, because he's undersized, and once he slows down athletically and he can get hit, it's not gonna be pretty.
No. Frank over on Twitch is asking, is Usyk too small for heavyweight? I've said that it's not really the size issue, because I think his speed is good enough for heavyweight. It's the power. I don't think he's powerful enough for heavyweight. To me, he has definitely, his power has not come up in weight with him like it did at cruiserweight. It's not the same. That's the biggest issue. Because I think his size, generally speaking, even though he is a little bit undersized for the division weight-wise, height-wise, not so much. 6'2", 6'3", or 6'1", or whatever. There's a lot of heavyweights that are 250 and 6'1", and we never talk about, are they undersized, right? Because they're naturally bigger, they can hit harder, they can keep up with the heavyweight power. Usyk's issue is power. He cannot fight in a firefight with some of these guys. That's the biggest issue. Anyways, Gary, also on this card, Ted Cheeseman versus James Metcalf. That was a fun fight. Chris Congo losing to Michael Mickelson. Fabio Wardley versus Eric Molina. Texan. You want to talk about that, Gary?
I told you he's the one Texan. I took his Texan card back a while ago. I gave it to somebody else. We got to figure out, who should I give his Texan card to? Should I give it to Josh Greer, or should I give it to Usyk or Joe Smith? Who should I give?
Well, you can't give it to Joe Smith because he's like a straight Long Island dude.
I got to give his Texas card. Someone's getting Eric Molina's Texas card. He didn't, and he's from the Rio Grande Valley too. Like, he's from where Omar Juarez and Brandon Figueroa and Omar Figueroa are all from. He gets his Texas card removed.
Also, Campbell Hatton made his pro debut on this card.
Can we talk about Campbell Hatton? Sure. Well, you want to talk about Wardley? What did you think about Fabio Wardley?
He's one of those guys where Jonathan Kidder, Tanahara.
Tanahara keeps his Texas card.
I think Wardley's one of those heavyweights where he's kind of in the what's his name on Top Rank. He was the top rank heavyweight prospect.
Jared Anderson?
Yeah, he's not in. I mean, it's not a 1-to-1 analog, of course, but they're fun prospects. I don't see any of these guys being a champion, but they're fun prospects. You know what I mean? Like, I think they're gonna hang around maybe the top 20-ish and have some fun fights. Maybe fight a top 10 guy here and there.
You can make money as a heavyweight doing that. You don't have to be a top 10 guy to make money as a heavyweight.
You really don't, unfortunately.
No, I mean, it's good. I mean, good for them. They're getting hit by 250 pounders. They should get paid.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fabio Wardley is a fun fighter. That's where I've settled with on him. I don't think he's going to be a heavyweight champion anytime soon, but he's a fun fighter, 100%.
Fabio Wardley's last fight, I thought he looked really, really good. I'm trying to figure out who that was against. It wasn't a name. Richard Larte, who had fought.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And he looked really good. He knocked him out in 2 rounds. And I thought, okay, this guy's on his. I'm not saying he's going to be the next heavyweight champ, but he looks like he could go that path. I'm going to take a step back on that in this Eric Molina fight. Eric Molina is a guy who sucks, who's had his Texas card removed, and he was giving him trouble. Not that he was necessarily winning rounds, although he may have been. It wasn't a good look for Wardley. He won, he got it done, so kudos to him. I just thought he could look a lot better in being a guy that he should outmatch. Like Molina. Molina stepped up before once fought good guys. He gets blown out for his trouble.
I would kind of chalk it up to, like, this is the first time he's fighting a real, like, opponent, in a sense. Even though it's Eric Molina, right, he's a real opponent.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Johnson. Remember, like, he fought all the heavyweight prospects of like 5 to 10 years ago, right? Like,
he was a big prospect on his way up. Now he's like got a record like 24-20 because he gets beat by what's Kevin Johnson's record?
I kind of feel like, and he gave some guys some issues. Like, I remember like Dubois, like, going the distance with him, I want to believe, or went like a while with him at least. Like, there's a lot of heavyweight prospects that fought Kevin Johnson. Kind of didn't look that great. He was kind of like that guy you would throw at prospects. Okay, here's your first like test to kind of see how good you are. Like, you're not going to fight some guy we find at a bar or a club or like Home Depot. Like, we're not going to do that anymore. Like, we're going to actually find someone that's legitimate for you. That's a name. You're going to fight him, get some rounds on your belt. You're not supposed to look that great in it.
Molina did fight for a world title twice.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't do well in those 2 fights, obviously, but he fought Joshua and Wilder.
He did better against Wilder. He rocked Wilder, right?
You're right. He did. He did.
Yeah. Come on,
I remember all the haters coming out saying he's got a paper mache chin because Eric Molina rocked him. It's like, guys, come on. Everyone. I don't even remember him being rocked. I just remember the haters. See, that's like the boxing haters, man. Like, that's what I remember is the haters. He got hurt. It's like Crawford got hurt by Gamboa, so Crawford's got a paper chin. It's like, okay, he's never been knocked down. Whatever. Like,
hey man, Mean Machine rocked him too.
You're right. You're right.
There's now a link. There's a pattern. I'm sorry. But Campbell Hatton, I know you want to talk about Campbell Hatton's pro debut here and shit on it, Gary. I know that's what you wanted to do. So, Gary, you want to shit on a living legend's son? In his pro debut with, I want to say, like little to no amateur experience.
Okay, fine. Look, I said his performance wasn't good. It wasn't. And Rob said, snarky laughing emoji, it's his pro debut. Fine. Then why is it on TV for me to watch on a huge card like this?
Because every fight is televised nowadays.
But he should be making his pro debut at a club in front of 200 people. He should not be making if he's not good. But, and I'm not saying he's never going to be good. Right now, he's not good. Can we agree on that?
Gary, if this was the card opener instead of like the third fight from the top, which made no sense to me as well, would it still get this vitriol?
If it was an opener?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Exactly,
Probably not.
right? Like, they only put it like third fight from the top because of his name. Let's be honest about it. And hey, nepotism in the sport has a long running tradition. Trust me.
But okay, if you want that kind, it's like the Bull, like the Bull brothers, like their dad put them under such a microscope that you're gonna. Remember when Bull played for Lakers?
No,
he got so much undue criticism. It's like, that guy's a good player. He's just not as good as he's not Magic Johnson with a jump shot like his dad said. Right? Like, I don't know. When you give Hatton, put him on this big of a stage this early in his career, I got to be fair, and he wasn't good.
But the only stage you're talking about is that he was just on a pay-per-view card near the top of the card, not the main event, just near the top of the card, not the bottom half of the card. That's it. But the level of opponent, it's not like he went out there and tried to fight a champion in his first fight and got, smoked and just like looked like a fool. He fought a nobody that was 0-10, like somebody who probably should fight in his pro debut with no amateur record, because that's what you should be fighting if you have no amateur record and you're jumping into the pros. I don't think it's that bad of a performance, to be honest. Like, we've seen gold medalists come into the pros, get high placement on a card,
and lose.
And
take that L.
We've been in the last 18 months. Campbell Hatton's we're only talking about him because of his last name. It's not like he won a gold medal. It's not like he won British amateur titles. He doesn't have that under his resume yet. He doesn't have anything under his resume. So what I saw is that he looked like a fun fighter that was aggressive, had some good shot selection. Didn't like to be tied up, obviously. Like there's some issues with the inside work I think he needs to be adjusted for. Clearly a mid-range guy, but fun. For a pro debut fighter, he looked fun. He didn't look like he didn't belong in the boxing ring either. Like, we've seen a lot of people, Gary, you have to admit, that have an actual record and an amateur record.
Yeah.
That get in there and you're like, you're not an athlete, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Mick Conlon, Olympic bronze medalist, right? Bronze?
I wasn't going to say Mick Conlon, but that's just... No. Remember that one viral video of that one guy that was like doing like this and then got like knocked out really silly?
That's my boy. That's not the guy that got knocked out. John Rincon is the guy that knocked him out. The worst fighter ever.
Yes.
That's my boy, John Rincon from Corpus Christi.
That's right.
And Rincon got hated. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm making my pro debut. This is who they gave me to fight. What do you want me to do? I knocked him out in one round. Like,
exactly.
That's my boy, John Rincon from Corpus Christi. Shout out.
I'm not going to sit here and say that Campbell Hatton's for sure not going to be like the Shane Mosley Jr. of his generation. I'm not saying that yet. Don't get me wrong. But he looked fun. He looked like he was an athlete. He looked like, if he had another 5 years of experience under his belt, he might be decent. Other than that, I can't judge it, And definitely wasn't a bad fight to me. Like, he was going out there to try to put on a performance, And the opponent clearly did not like the shots that he was getting tagged with and was tying up for dear life. And I mean, at that point, it's very difficult to try to deal with that and make it an entertaining scrap.
I'll say, like Father like son, he was committed to going to the body. I will give him that.
Yeah, he was. Really was. I think it'd be a nice transition now. Gary, are you thinking like in the future, right? We're gonna get the vengeance of the Zoo clan against the Hatton clan and get Tim Zoo, who just beat up Dennis Hogan, against Campbell Hatton, even though they're like weight classes apart.
No, I mean, that's not even a thought. Dude, Tim Zoo, and I always want to call him Tim Zoo, too, because of Tim Zoo is good. He's legitimate. He's a legitimate top 10 guy who will be a top 5 guy who could really, in reality, become a world champion. I don't know that he will, right? Because that division's tough, and it's tough to get a belt there. Mm-hmm. But he could become a world champion. So, no, I'm not comparing Hatton. Better say the hell away with that guy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but what was Tim Zoo's pro debut? Do you remember it?
No.
Of course. Do you remember like anybody's like pro debut? Honestly,
I mean, guys that I follow.
But even then, like you have to follow them. Like you have to know
exactly.
Them. You know, you have to be obsessed with them to a degree, especially if like you're a fan of them. Like you don't know them, you're just a fan of them. Like people like know about like Mayweather's debut because like we've seen that fight so much on promo packages and shit like that, right? But most of the time, like people's pro debuts back in the day weren't even like televised.
Televised for sure not, yeah.
Nowadays they are because every fight on a card gets streamed or televised, right? They find some package to get distributed out.
Keith Thurman told me that is so detrimental to someone's progress as a fighter. It's like because we're talking about wars. He's like, look, he's fighting. Everyone back home is watching. He's got people watching. He wants to knock people out. He said when he was at that stage in his career, talking about where Juarez was a year ago, 5 fights into his pro career, he's fighting at 4:00 in the afternoon in an empty arena. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody saw it, right? So he could go in and you could work on things. You don't worry about trying to look perfect, right? Like you wouldn't trying to worry about getting a knockout. You just went in there, you did your work, you listened to your corner, and you fought the best you could. And then that you usually get a knockout because you'd outclassed the guy, but you weren't in there trying to hit a home run, trying to show off for everyone back home who's watching it. You know, he said it's not good for the development of a fighter, right? Like it's like having minor league baseball in front of everybody. It's like, it should be under the radar so that you can grow. And then when you're ready to fight on prime time, you've been developed.
No, I definitely understand that sentiment. I just think it's incompatible with where distribution is going when it comes to entertainment. When we as a society went to streaming, that was like unlocking all the doors for like what we can show people, when we can show people, like the handcuffs of TV were no longer there. And I think there's some benefit to that as well. Like maybe, Thurman doesn't want to admit it, but like there's a lot of fucking prospects right now that are 5-0, 4-0 that have a following right now because people can fucking watch them. And that is going to help their career. It may make them have more pressure and more anxiety, and that is detrimental to some degree. But these guys are becoming stars far faster nowadays than they used to. Like Teofimo Lopez being an undisputed champion, the star, air quotes, that he is now, it's impossible if he didn't get televised, or if he didn't get televised slots his whole way up, knocking out people and doing like the Heisman Trophy pose and shit like that, right? Like it just wouldn't happen. Anyways, did you see the Tim Zoo fight? I know we mentioned it. Did you see the?
I hadn't watched it. Have you? Yeah.
I hope you watched it.
It wasn't on TV here, so I have to go find it. No, I have to go find a link for it somewhere.
Damn.
A Reddit thread or something.
Yeah, Daily Motion.
It should be on Daily. It should not be on Daily Motion. You should not go to Daily Motion and watch it. You should not.
Hey, but we gotta watch Sako Bika. Like.
Oh yeah.
It's a big comeback, man.
Yes. I bet you he's tough. I bet you he stood in the pocket and traded.
He won.
Did he?
Yeah,
oh,
he
good
won.
for him. Good for him.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, that just means he's going to get a bigger fight now and take more punishment. But, whatever.
When were the Anthony Durrell fights?
Those weren't that long ago, right? Like 2014.
Wow. That's actually not a bad guess, Gary. 2014 was the second one. 2013 was the first one. I feel like that was forever ago.
When did you fight Andre Ward? 2010?
Gary, that's 8 years ago now.
That is a long time ago. Wow.
That's almost a decade ago.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, God. Where's time go?
When did he fight Ward? 2010?
Yeah, 2010. Yep. And then he fought, obviously, Don Stevenson in 2015. And hadn't fought since 2017 when he obviously made his comeback this week. Shout out to Sako Beacon, man. Long-time veteran of the sport, man. Anyways, since we didn't see that card, we can just move on from that. Amanda Serrano, I'm assuming you watched her fight. Thoughts on her pick up another vacant belt?
Sensation. She didn't pick up a vacant belt. She defended her two.
Vacant IBO. Was there vacant IBO? I'm just guessing.
There was a vacant IBO.
Yes.
She was sensational. She was great. I mean, and she fought at Bermudez, who's a multi-division world champion. So this was a real test, and Serrano was a level ahead. So, like, I really think that she might be the second best woman fighter in the world. Like, when you talk about the Kevin Durant to the LeBron James, this is it. This is like
Amanda Serrano's Devin Booker. And you were like bigging Devin Booker up earlier, guys. You're like, fuck.
But I said he's a top 8 to 12 player, right? He's around 10.
Yeah, Serrano's more like probably like top 6-ish, top 5.
I really think she's 2. Like, I really think she's 2.
She's not. I put Pursoon above her.
Okay, fine. Then she's 3. I'll give you that.
Estrada.
I'm done. No, I don't think so.
McCaskill? You don't give.
I love McCaskill, but is she better than Serrano?
The wins against.
She's got 2 great wins. She's got 2 great wins for sure.
Those 2 great wins eclipse everything Serrano's done. The cumulative nature of Serrano's career does not equal those 2 wins. Hot take? People in the chat, let us know.
She's got more memorable wins, right? Like that's for sure. She beat the. When I say, look, this is gonna be she beat the greatest women's fighter of all time. Now, Clarissa Shields is the best, but she doesn't have the body of work yet to say that she's the greatest, right? Like Pat Mahomes may be the best quarterback you ever saw, but Tom Brady's still the greatest, if that makes sense, right? Because he's got 7. How many Super Bowls has Brady won at this point? 7?
I want to say 7.
7, right? So, like, Mahomes single season may have better seasons than Brady, so he might be the best you've ever seen, but he's not even close to the greatest yet. And that's how I feel about Shields. She doesn't have the body of work yet to be called the greatest, although she is the best. There's no one with better skills than her.
Do you want to box Rex? Pound for pound.
Women's pound for pound?
Yeah. We've actually never looked at this, I want to say. It's not too bad, I want to say. It could be a lot worse. Okay, it's pretty bad. I looked at a little more.
I didn't think it was
I looked at a little more. Number 1, Katie Taylor. Number 2, Jessica McCaskill. Number 3, Amanda Serrano. Number 4, Devon Pursoon. Number 5, Clarissa Shields. And notable mentions that are obviously in that top 5. We have Brackets at 6, Estrada at 7. Terry Harper at 8, Michaela Mayer at 9, and Chantel Cameron at 10. And that's about it. There's a large drop off from like people that we probably know, to be honest. I mean, it's probably some of the right names, maybe not the right order of that top 10. Like Terry Harper's really good. She might be in the top 10. Estrada is definitely in the top 10. Mayer's probably not.
It's not the names. It was like Foogatti's top 20 MCs of all time. It's like the list, the names were fine. The order was a little weird. Remember?
Yeah.
Like his order was like really strange.
Stupid.
It's like he didn't understand the assignment. It's like, oh, I didn't put these in any order. I just came up with 20 and read them at random. Right? Like this list was weird. So the list, the names were fine. It was the order that was weird.
Jonathan Kidder, please check that fucking racism at the door. Please. Thank you. Weirdos, man. Seriously, I fucking hate when people do that. Like, because no one will ever say that, like, Savannah Marshall's hood. But Clarissa Shields is hood. I wonder why people think that from the UK. I wonder why. Again, check that fucking racism at the door. Moving on from that, Serrano. I mean, what's next for it? What do you want next for Serrano? Is there anything that's like
Katie Taylor? I don't know how realistic that is. Right.
Katie Taylor's at 140 right now, man.
I'm guessing Serrano's held a belt at 140 or 35, right? I mean, she's held belt everywhere.
There's no way she's held belt 140.
Probably not. That'd be real big.
That's
135. I'm sure she's held 7 different world titles.
Yeah, but there's like 17 divisions.
Right. I'm guessing she didn't hold one in heavyweight or cruiserweight or bridgerweight. Is it going to be a women's bridgerweight division?
Please stop. Why? Are they really making that? Like, we haven't really heard that much since they talked about it.
There's already Bryant Jennings versus Oscar Rivas for the first title.
Is that like announced in the official? I know they were like,
yeah.
Oh my god, why?
It's official. They have announced it. I don't know if the fighters have signed on to it, but WBC has announced it.
This makes me so fucking upset. God damn it.
Well, I mean, like, why is it bad? Because it's ridiculous. But like, aren't we already past? Like, hasn't the boat of ridiculous in boxing already left the dock? Like, of all the things that are ridiculous, like, I don't think this ranks in the top 50.
I don't think it matters though, right? Because like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is this the most ridiculous thing in boxing? No, we have the fucking mob in boxing in 2021. We have fucking cartels running this shit still. Like, of course, it's not the top issue, but it's still a fucking issue. Like, it's still gonna dilute
another weight division. Like,
it's like saying like, is 2-minute rounds for women's boxing the number one issue in the sport? No, but it's still a fucking issue. It's not something on the road.
It's the number one issue in women's boxing. It is.
I don't know about that. I don't think that's the case. It's definitely up there. It's not the number one issue. The number one issue is that women do not get a good card placement on big cards. Like, that is
you're right. If you got better card placement,
the 2-minute round would be the next issue. It would be a second or third order issue. The first order issue is these women don't get.
Once they got good card placement, more people will start taking it seriously. Once more people start taking it seriously, like, why are they only fighting 2-minute rounds? So let's make it 3. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll give you that.
Anyways, what were we talking about before that? What was the issue?
Serrano.
Okay. Anyways, we move on from that. That's fine. Any other fights that we had this weekend that I'm forgetting? Or is that it?
No, those were the only. And then Zach Parker absolutely destroyed Vaughn Alexander. And Alexander's a guy who went the distance with Melikuziev. He went the distance with Dennis Douglin and lost a split decision to him. Like, he's been the distance with a lot of guys. This is the first time he's been stopping his 6 losses. And Zach Parker absolutely destroyed him. He's long and awkward, and he's got pop. This is going to be, and this is why I wanted Rob to be on, because Rob always gives me crap for disrespecting UK fighters. Zach Parker is a guy to keep an eye on. Now, obviously, 168 is tough because Canelo is there, but he's ranked number 1 by WBO. Now, he's not going to beat Canelo, and I don't think he's ready for a world title fight just yet, but like, he's 2 or 3 fights away, and it's hard to go from Vaughn Alexander to Canelo or Caleb Plant or Billy Joe, but I think if he took 2 or 3 more intermediate fights there, I think he would be ready. Like, I'd like to see him fight Anthony. That's still Gabe Rosado. I think would be a great opponent for him to fight next.
Yeah,
and then fight Durrell, right? And then fight for a world title. Like, he's good. He's like Gabe Rosado. I think would be an excellent fight for him. He's going to stand up to him. He's going to put some pressure back on him, but who he should be able to beat.
Like a Martin Murray type, like that level of fighters. You know, like the top 20-ish gatekeeper / journeyman.
Exactly.
In sport. Absolutely. Yeah. No. No. Zach Parker's good. I've always liked his fights. I don't think he's going to be a champion next, only meaning like who I see as the champions right now, he doesn't beat in the near future. There's some good guys holding belts right now, 168. But 168 is not a deep division.
It's not deep. It's just top heavy with Benavidez, Plant, and obviously Canelo.
Yeah, exactly. Even like Callum Smith right now, like
Callum Smith,
versus like Zach Parker, I don't think Parker would look that great in. Like Daniel Jacobs, I think would beat Zach Parker right now. Of course, you know, like there's a lot of fighters that 160.
Not giving off, not from that last performance though against Rosado.
I don't know what that was, man.
I love Spencer's tweet. The hell is Jacobs doing?
I don't know what the mindset was for that game plan, that fight. That was weird, man. That was his one fight without Rozier, right?
He's back with Rozier now.
No,
Yeah.
they were talking about.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
It's not like official, right? They were taught. They like I think Daniel Jacobs sent out sort of some feelers, try to contact Andre Rozier and try to get that relationship back in order. But I don't think it ever came out that they are back together and they're
Was
working.
that his only fight without Rozier?
I want to say it was, right? If it is, then that's like a huge indicator of why that matchup looked funny, right?
Was he with Chavez? Was he with Rozier during the Chavez fight? I don't think so. I think
People in the chat, let us know. Let us know, people in the chat, if you remember.
Speaking of Chavez.
Hey, look at that segue, Gary. You want to talk about Chavez Jr. fighting Anderson Silva?
I'm taking Anderson Silva. Silva's got heart. How old is Anderson Silva? Like
43?
I remember
44?
Is that okay? I actually think he's gonna be older than that because I remember like Anderson Silva was the guy. Like I like Anderson Silva. I could spot him. I could pick him out of. Assuming he looks similar to what he did 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
He does.
Okay, I could pick him out of a room. I know who he is. I've seen him fight before. He's a master. Yeah, and for all those reasons, I'm gonna pick him to beat Chavez in boxing. Not really.
45.
It's just what I 45.
45.
So it's what I think of Silver and what I think of Chavez. I think Chavez is a joke. I think Anderson Silva is a master of his craft.
I love Anderson Silva. Okay, like let's. Yo, Jonathan Kid, I'm just gonna block you, dude. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I'm not in the mood for it today. I've had a long fucking week. He's like, check your racism at the door. It's like,
you're gonna block him for that. That's.
I'm sorry. Dude, it's been a long week. Bro. Like, I just don't care.
Some Pee Wee Herman stuff. I know you are, but what am I? Like,
hey
man,
dude.
it's your channel. You could...
To the white people that listen to the show, never call a black person you do not know personally, especially hood, ghetto, shit like that. Just don't do it. Just do not do it. It's so easy not to do that. To not come off as a suburbanite racist motherfucker. It is so easy. I know you guys in the UK are so used to just colonizing the world and enslaving people. You guys can't do it anymore. It's been a few hundred years. Okay, you guys can't do it anymore. Calm it down. Anyways, moving on. What were we talking about? Oh, Anderson Silva. I love Anderson to death. I've met him, I think, once or twice, if not more than that. One of the nicest people in the sport. You know, especially with like the Michael Jackson, like really like high pitched, like low voice, right? Like he's just he's a nice dude. You can't not love Anderson Silva. Especially after the leg breaks and his comeback. But goddamn, man, like this is still a 45-year-old dude.
No, look, obviously he's not going to win. I was picking because I just don't like Chavez. Why are you picking Silver? Because I don't like Chavez. Nothing professional, only personal.
And let's not forget, like Chavez did look good against Jacobs.
He did.
Like he just was like, I'm done.
Arguably his best round of the fight. Well, he looked good the first two. Then Chavez, he kind of Delgado, Jacobs kind of rallied in the. I don't know. Daniel and Jacobs were coming out at the same time, and somehow it came out Delgado. Daniel Jacobs rallied after that, and then you saw, I think it was the fifth or the sixth round where Chavez looked like he got back into the fight, and then he just quit. It's like, all right, good. It's like when you go hit golf balls, you always leave on a good one. Like you keep hitting golf balls till you whack one, and then you leave. That's what Chavez did in his fight against. All right, I had a good round. I'm gonna leave on that one.
Dude, that whole build up to that fight, the whole like back room interaction with Mickey Rourke with him like under the blanket, looking like who the fuck is Mickey Rourke and why is he talking to me? Like You ever like have that buddy that like did like some psychedelics and they're like tripping out and they're just like looking at you like what the fuck is going on? That's what Chavez looked like talking to Mickey Rourke in that back room. It was so good. But Chavez Jr. should win this fight. And I can't believe it's happening. This is honestly disgusting. Because like if it was just like an exhibition on Triller, whatever, like I think I would be like kind of fine with it. I would be whatever about it. But this is a legitimate fight that they're having. Like this is bad. Like this is not good. Like I wanted Anderson Silva to go to like Ryzen, take some steroids, and fight Fedor Emelianenko, and like have your like walk-off fight for your pro career. This move I don't want for Anderson Silva. I don't like. Doesn't make sense to me. The opponent doesn't make sense to me. The matchup no one ever asked for.
Strange matchup.
Because like, like if we heard like Roy Jones Jr. versus Anderson Silva on Triller, we'd be like, oh, cool, okay. Like we wanted to see that like 5 years ago, kind of, or like more like 8 years ago now, probably now. We'll take it, whatever. Fuck it. We'll go on, crackstreams.com and watch it.
Chavez, an active boxer who did okay, who looked like he still belongs, at least in his last fight.
And let's be honest here, okay? If Chavez gave a fucking damn, he would beat guys like Munguia. Like, he would still be a top 15-ish fucking middleweight. Like, that's the craziest part. Like, this is a bad matchup. If it even ends up happening, because there's a huge part of me that thinks that we never end up getting to this fight. Either injury, shenanigans on either party. Like, both these guys have a history of just being weird dudes in a way. So I am a little bit doubtful we even get to like that moment where we see both guys in the ring with each other. But hey, it might happen. What else are we going to talk about, Gary? Let's talk about you want to talk about fights coming up this weekend? You want to talk about Crawford Pacquiao? What do you want to talk about?
Want to talk about Crawford Pacquiao first? Because I feel like that's it. Well, that was that was your graphic, was it not? So we should.
It was.
We should get to that.
Yeah, an hour into the show.
47 minutes.
Oh yeah, it's true. Much better. 48 minutes now, if we're being exact. Basically, and look, it depends who you fucking ask here. Top Rank, to me, has been the one putting out this information. Right? So I'm going to say that Top Rank has been putting out that Pacquiao Crawford is in negotiations and is most likely or is possible to happen for a June 5th date in Abu Dhabi. The reason why I'm still highly, highly skeptical of this is because, one, it is still pretty much just Top Rank talking about this. Sean Gibbons, who is one of Manny Pacquiao's managers and works with Manny Pacquiao Promotions, has denied this explicitly. It wouldn't be the first time a manager lied, but also wouldn't be the first time Sean Gibbons said this shit isn't happening, and the shit really wasn't happening. And it would be the first time we had a Pacquiao Crawford negotiations talk for X date at Y location, and it didn't materialize, and it was smoke being blown up media's ass by Bob Arum. I don't think this is going to happen. If I had to be quite honest with you guys, I'm going to keep on my narrative of Bob Arum is stringing Terence Crawford along for whatever reason, and Terence Crawford, for whatever reason, keeps believing it. It's sad, but this is where we're at, and I'm tired of us going down these fucking talking point media cycles of this fighter's fighting this fighter and negotiations when we all know this just happened every year for the last decade pretty much, and it's not going to happen. Gary, I remember you vaguely saying something on the group chat about how there's smoke to this fire. I didn't see that smoke. Maybe you saw something I didn't. Your thoughts?
It just doesn't go away, and they're making it sound like they're close. So here's I was doing a couple thoughts on it. First, my gut instinct is it's still not going to happen, and they're using this as the old switch, the old bait and switch. Like they're going to say, "Look, we tried to negotiate," and they're going to get funding as if they're fighting Manny Pacquiao, and then they're going to hit you with José Lopez, right? They're like, "We tried. We offered everything to Pacquiao. We gave him offered him $40 million. He still didn't want the fight. So don't give me all this back all this talk back that we're fighting Lopez. We argued, we debate, we negotiated for months with a legend, and then he just wouldn't agree to anything, including $40 million. That's why you're getting Lopez. They're going to get the funding in Abu Dhabi for a Terrence Crawford fight with the expectations that it's Pacquiao, and then he's going to switch and he's going to bait and switch and give you Josito Lopez. He's fighting Josito Lopez next. The more I look into it, because when Pacquiao's team said. I think they said 40 million was a joke. I think is what they said.
Yeah.
It was nonsense or something like that. And the first article said the only thing they needed is funding. Okay, well, I'm going to buy 10 Lamborghinis tomorrow. I just need to get funding for it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, if you don't have funding, you don't have anything.
Everyone has access to great healthcare in America.
Like, if you don't have, what does that mean? The only hurdle in the way left is funding. Well, that's the one hurdle in the world for almost everyone to buying almost everything. I'm going to go buy a $20 million estate on some remote volcano in Hawaii, except I just need the funding. Like, yeah, that's a problem. Do you have a plan to get the funding? I mean, are you just waiting for a wire to come through? What does that mean? We don't have funding. He was supposed to fight Amir Khan, I think also in Abu Dhabi, but it might have been UAE. I don't remember.
They won them.
And that fight was done, except the money was never real, and there was no real offer. It's like, this fight, I'm telling you, this is a sales tactic. He's selling you one thing, and he's going to switch you right at the last minute, and he's selling you a Lambo. He's going to switch you into a Honda Civic at the last minute. I'm telling you right now, that's what's going to happen. This fight's not happening.
Frank, I'm
good.
I'm going to get Tesla. I'm going to get Tesla. Work on the funding at the moment. No, don't get Tesla, man. Those things burst on fire. Don't do that.
Do they?
I forget the number, like the ratio, right, of like how many Teslas, how many car fires per month or per year are Teslas, and how many cars on the road are Teslas, and the ratio of it. But it's a lot. Like, it's like 9 times. You're 9 times likely to, like, let's say, get a car fire with a Tesla than another car. I want to say is the number. I could be wrong on that number. Okay, but it's a massive jump up. Anyways, digressing. Since we're on the topic, I'll say it for a bit. My last thoughts on Pacquiao Crawford. I agree with Gary 100% that this is a sales tactic in a sense, a bait and switch tactic by Bob Arum. I just wish people stopped being sold on this shit. Because, like, you can go back to 2017, 2016 and find articles that basically are the same exact thing, word for word. You know, like Pacquiao Crawford in the Middle East, summertime, whatever. We've heard this for years, half a decade at least. It's not happening. And from the time it started, 2016, 17, to now, the barriers, the blockades, the hurdles to make this fight have grown exponentially. They're no longer on the same network. They're no longer on the same promotional platform. Like, those are massive, exponential hurdles in this sport to get through in negotiations that are now created for this matchup that weren't there when it first started. So for people to think that, like, this fight's now going to happen all of a sudden, I think it's like, it comes from like a naivete of some boxing fans. There's that segment of boxing fans that are just Top Rank fans too for some reason, or Bob Arum fans for some reason. So they're going to believe whatever Bob Arum and Top Rank says. But for fuck's sake, man, like, it's not happening. Like, it's not. And I'm begging for someone in Crawford's team that's not Bob Arum, of course, and not someone from Top Rank, of course, to sit him down and go, look, dude, you are being strung along and you're losing the prime of your career from this fucking jackass that's 99 years old eating edibles in Vegas and could give 2 damns and 2 shits about you, dude. What are you doing? Let's buy out your contract and get the fuck out of here. Let's go make some real money. Let's go make some real fights and create a legacy. Because all you're doing now is destroying your legacy, Crawford. Like, think about, like, the public perception of Crawford post, like, Ndongo, when he unified and became undisputed champion at 140. to now, he has torpedoed his reputation, his legacy. And he's only won since then. That's incredible. I've never seen that before in the history of combat sports. For a guy to go from number one pound for pound, the heir to Mayweather, blah, 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 to 3 or 4 years later, to, oh, man, like, what's he doing, man? Like, he's doing nothing. He's digressed. He's stagnated. He's getting hurt by these fucking journeymen. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, it's ridiculous. And no one has had the balls, it looks like, to sit down Crawford and tell him how it is. Bomac's a yes man. It's clear as day that he's a fucking yes man. Whether it's to Bob Arum, to Crawford, or whoever, he's a fucking yes man. So somebody who's ever listening, get to Crawford. Help him out. Please, save this dude. Anyways.
I look, when I heard this, I was like, okay, well, that's why Crawford said he doesn't want to fight Virgil Ortiz. This is why Crawford isn't really negotiating with Sean Porter. It's because he's got the big money fight with Pacquiao lined up. And it all started to make sense to me. And then when Pacquiao's camp came out and said, this is not true, right? It's like, okay, well, that makes sense too. But then I'm back to the original part where, look, Crawford's ducking. We can say Crawford's not ducking, and I've been the biggest Crawford apologist for years. Crawford doesn't want these fights. Crawford came out and said that Virgil Ortiz ain't ready. They're trying to rush him. Oh, but Jose Benavidez was better? Yo, check it. Who had a better resume when they fought? Benavidez when he fought Crawford or Virgil Ortiz now?
Oh, it's Ortiz.
That's what I'm saying. So he just doesn't want that fight because he could lose. He doesn't want to fight Porter because he could lose. He's not. The fight with Spence is done. It's off the table. Not because he's got a Pacquiao fight, which would be a bigger money fight. It's because he doesn't want to fight Crawford. He's gonna make his $5 million if I host Zito Lopez. Like, and I'm not. It is what it is. But it's a duck. Like, if you want to take easy fights and tarnish your legacy for $4 or $5 million, that's your right. I would do it $5 million too. But then you tarnish your legacy. That's the payoff.
Love you, Crawford. Please get out of that Top Rank deal because it's only been detrimental to you.
But he doesn't want to fight Sean Porter. He could fight Sean Porter tomorrow if he wanted to. He don't want to fight Sean Porter. He could take 40%, 45%, and negotiate with Errol Spence. He doesn't want that fight. I want 60% to fight Errol Spence. That means you don't want to fight him. You can take a mega fight with Virgil Ortiz. You don't want to. You want to fight Jose Lopez because it's easy. You wanted to fight Mean Machine because it's easy. You wanted to fight Kell Brook because he's old and shot. You wanted to fight Amir Khan because he's no good. You wanted the easy fights.
I somewhat disagree. I just put most of the blame on Top Rank and Bomac. I center them on this issue because they always seem to be the filters in these negotiations. Crawford never seems like he's actively involved in negotiations. It seems like Top Rank is negotiating. Then they go to Bomac, and then from Bomac to Crawford. That seems to be the process of information traveling on that team. So, to me, it would make a lot of sense for Top Rank to go, hey, we're going to negotiate with Porter right here. We'll come back with you with what they told us.
My perception of that changed when Porter was unable to make a fight with Porter. Because Porter's literally has been able to make a fight with every other top-name welterweight. Every other one. And
to your point about bringing up the Porter negotiations, Porter and Crawford talked on the phone one-on-one. Like, we know that. They've both admitted it. You know, like, there's really no reason for it. Like, for why this fight's not happening. Yeah. Expect a lot of angry chats and comments, Gary, directed at you tomorrow.
Bring it.
And Liam Roscoe, who always hates on us because apparently we're not Crawford stands like he is, direct your comments at Gary for this show.
Have I not been a Crawford supporter since name redacted? Like, I've always been a Crawford supporter. But at a certain point, you got to call, you know what I'm saying? You got to call a spade a spade. He's not making these fights. They're not happening because he doesn't really care if they happen. At best, at worst, he's ducking them.
And also, MC Treasure, you're wrong. Saying that all the welterweights Porter fought were on PBC, though. That's not true. Kell Brook. And it's not, Porter's fault that, like, the other big welterweights he fought, Danny, Keith, and Earl Spence, happened to be on PBC. Those are also three of the best welterweights in the world. Like, tough titties, dude. Like, what am I supposed to do for you? You know what I mean? Like, that's like where there's, like, this aspect to this narrative falls apart. Because, like, okay, man, like, PBC has a bunch of welterweights. Get over it. You know what I mean? Like, this is the material reality you are faced with if you're Crawford and his team. Deal with it. Sitting here on your, like, chair and going, oh, man, but, like, PBC has all the welterweights, man. It's like, Crawford can't fight these guys. That's why Porter fights them. Is ridiculous. Because he can make the fights. How? Because we just laid it out exactly. These guys have been on phone calls with each other. And Crawford said, nah, I'm not playing for that right now. He told Porter on the phone with Porter, no, we have other plans in the work. Right?
And if that plan was Manny Pacquiao, I get it. Right? Like, if you think that this Pacquiao fight's going to happen, I'm not negotiating with Porter in a tough fight for half the money that I'll get for fighting Pacquiao. Like, I'm fighting Pacquiao. If that fight's real, it's happening.
And let's remember what those Crawford plans were. A Kell Brook fight.
You gotta call it what it is.
No. Let me finish. And then you have jackasses that commented on our last show that go, "Hey, man, Terrence Crawford has finished all of Earl Spence's opponents faster." I'm thinking, what common opponents do they have? I'm like, oh, it's only Kell Brook. That's the only common opponent that they have. Are we really comparing that? Are we really doing that right now?
Say, how many guys does Crawford fought at welterweight? Like that's like, yeah, it's only Kell Brook.
And like, let's not add the context of like Kell Brook was in his prime, a champion, fighting Earl Spence in 2017, right? Instead of 2020, 3 years later, layoffs later, okay, no longer a champion. Are we really doing that? Like, are we really like, are Crawford fans that delusional that they ignore all like material reality, like context, and they're just like, you know what? Crawford beat Kell Brook faster, man. That means he's better. That means he's better, bro. Can't defeat logic. Logic, bro. That's fucking Crawford fans right now. Fucking idiots. Okay, all of you top-ranked sickle fans, okay, need to stick your heads up your fucking asses, please. Top-ranked stands are the worst. Like matchroom stands, I love you guys exponentially more than top-ranked stands. Okay, at least your fucking promotional company seems somewhat like well put together. You know, at least Eddie Hearn is like a decent promoter, right? Like Bob Arum is shit. Like complete fucking dog shit. Anyways.
De La Hoya does a good job too, by the way.
MC Treasure, oh my God, this is awful. Porter doesn't want the fight too, but he will take it for a serious bag. Dude, you just contradicted yourself in your own statement there, MC Treasure. You just said Porter doesn't want the fight too, but he does want the fight for money. No shit, Sherlock. Really?
They offered him $1 million and then allegedly $2 million. Like, make him a real offer, and he'll take the fight because he's always done it in the past. And he said specifically, I'm mandatory for two different champions, Spence and Crawford. Kate Ebdo asked him on PBC Air, on Fox Air, who would you rather fight? Who would you prioritize? He said Crawford. Like, he obviously wants the fight. If you make him a real offer, he'll make the fight. But they don't want to give him a real offer because they don't want that fight.
MC Treasure, you're just wrong. No, I didn't. He would take it for a serious bag, meaning, by the way, this is not what a serious bag means, because first off, that's not even like, that's an arbitrary term that you just created, then defined yourself. Meaning much more than he would fight anyone for. Like, I think he fought Earl Spence for a serious bag. There you go.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you saying, MC Treasure? Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, it's so weird how, like, there's a segment of boxing fans, we get to Crawford Spence talking, like, topics, and they just shut down. Like, it immediately comes into, oh, it's Top Rank versus PBC, pick a fucking side. Instead of looking at the material nature of what this is and determining it based off of that. Right? We have one guy that's an objective pay-per-view draw at this point in time. We have one guy that's a unified champion.
One guy that's a pay-per-view flop.
Okay. Like, we have one guy that has plenty of options because their side has the lion's share of the division. Okay, that's the reality that you guys have to live in. Work around it. Okay? Life isn't sunshine and roses. It isn't perfect. Life is ugly, unfair, and unjust. Deal with it. Deal with it. Okay? Overcome that shit. How do you do it? Guess what? Take the 40% split with an Earl Spence fight. How do you get over it?
Split. Still more than he's making.
I know. Hold on. Offer Sean Porter $2.5 million, $3 million. Not even a 50-50 split with you, Crawford. Offer him like something that's equivalent to his guarantees that he was getting with PBC fighters and title fights there. Like, what are we talking about here? Hipster, my point is clear. PBC guys don't cross the road except for a king's ransom. That's objectively not true. Okay? Pay them what they are worth. It is that simple. Offering Sean Porter $1 million is not offering what he is worth. It is that simple. Okay? It is so fucking easy. Okay? And what is his guarantee against Spence? It's been $2 million, dude. All these guys have been getting guarantees and disclosed purses of $2 million since 2016. Okay? This is like a known fact. Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia both got $2 million disclosed purses for their unification. Okay? Don't come up here with this chump change and act like you're the fucking victim. Okay? Don't try to undercut the fighters, the actual workers and laborers who provide the totality of entertainment in this sport, and undercut their value. But we have fucking losers here that are siding with bum-ass promoters instead of fighters. It's crazy. Anyways. Manny Pacquiao Crawford, not happening. If it does, me and Gary come on the show and admit that we were wrong, which it lately has not been abnormal for us. But it's unlikely. Okay? And Crawford needs to get out of that Top Rank deal because clearly they have just stagnated his entire career. They are ruining his legacy. And that is without a doubt objectively fact. Okay? You can just look at the boxing fandom and see it. It's visible. It's palpable. The reputation difference with Crawford in 2021 versus 2017. Anyways, moving on from that, Bob Arum is expecting a decision for Fury Wilder legal battle to be issued in May. So that is a safe assumption that we're not going to hear anything about AJ Fury till after this, which means sometime in May. So we have a whole month, Gary, of headlines from Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum saying that the fight's done when it's not done. You excited for that?
Yeah, I am. That is exciting. And I kind of said that, and I don't know, maybe Wilder will take a fair payout. They offer me fair money to walk away, and I'll walk away. But like I said, look, that fight didn't happen for a legitimate reason because there was a worldwide pandemic a month after the first fight happened, or a couple weeks after the first fight happened. And you're seeing now in the Lou DiBella and O'Shaquie Foster lawsuit that's going to have some legal standing. Now, we need to wait to get a hearing, right? We need to wait to get a ruling on this, right? Have a court date and let a judge rule on this. But, like, it's pretty hard to say, no, your time as a mandatory, your rematch clause is up because of a pandemic that kept you out of the ring. I don't know, and sometimes these rulings really come and shock you, but if you were a judge and someone said, we tried to negotiate fights, I couldn't fight there, he couldn't fight here, there was no way we could possibly make the fight, we can make the fight now, here, there, or in the Middle East. I want my fight now. How does a judge say no to that? It's in the contract that you're the next opponent. We'll see. You know, and like Fury's gonna have a case too. He's got high paid lawyers, so they're not gonna show up and go DD. Right? They're gonna have a case. But if I'm asking you, if you were a judge, how would you look at it? I would say you kind of owe Wilder a fight.
But then I wonder, like, is Fury can Fury just breach the contract? And what penalties are there for the breach of contract? Like, let's say like the judge comes, or like the arbitrator, right, comes down here because it's not like an actual trial, right? It's a private arbitration. The arbitrator comes in and says, like, the contract needs to be owed, right? And Fury goes, no, I'm in breach of contract. What's the penalty? Like, I'm assuming it's going to be a monetary
Right.
to some degree. I can see them just fucking eating that as
It
well.
depends what it is. They say it's $1 million,
Yeah.
$5 million, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, if it's 10, even if I'm making 20 for the Joshua fight, I'm not giving up $10 million. I'll just fight Wilder and beat him again and then fight Joshua.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably like 1 to maybe like 3 to 4 million, maybe 5 million pushing it is probably what if the fine could be at the max. But I could see that happening. You know, like it's a fucking boxing contract at the end of the day. Like these things get broken all the time. People are in breach of contract all the time. They pay fines and they move on. I think that's kind of what is going to happen here. Like, I think regardless of what we get, we don't get Fury Wilder next. And as this progresses, I think it's quite possible we don't see Fury AJ next too. Like they need a tune-up, especially like Fury, right? The Fury camp requesting a tune-up is going to get louder and louder if they can't even negotiate in full a Fury Joshua fight till after, let's say, May 30th. Right? Like, you're looking at a 18-month layoff if you're Tyson Fury. You can't do that. You got to take a tune-up. You can't go into AJ fight.
Yeah.
Am I wrong here? So,
well, unless you look at the AJ fight as a tune-up, right? And then he can fight the Usyk fight. Like, AJ gets him ready, gets him sharp again, and then he fights the real fight, which is Usyk.
Yeah, absolutely agree. MC Treasure, bring it back to Crawford and PBC fighters. Talking about Spence doing PBC rematches, saying, watch out for those, or move to 154. Don't worry, Matt would defend that move too. Here's the deal. That's what I'm talking about. Spence has so many options, not only within his own weight class, but at 154 too, that he doesn't need Crawford. I don't think people get that, do you? Like, I'm not even picking a side here. Like, this is just how it works. Like, grow up, people. This is the world. This is business. This is capitalism. This is how it fucking works. Okay? If you're Earl Spence and you got rematches that can net you at least 300,000 pay-per-view buys every time, dude, you're not forced to go fight a pay-per-view bust like Crawford. There's no market push for you to do that. There has been a consumer backlash to hurt his pockets and hurt profits and surplus value. Again, Crawford himself doesn't add from his drawing power more than Porter and Thurman and these guys. So, of course, those rematches are probably talked about. Why wouldn't they be? Okay? That's why when we sit here and say Crawford and Top Rank need to accept that reality and work around it, that's not hating on Crawford. That's just being honest about the business situation here. Okay? And Crawford and Bob Arum need to negotiate PBC, not like A-sides. That's the reality. And I know they don't admit it. I know you guys don't admit it because it's unfair. But this is fucking boxing, guys. This sport has never been fair. This is capitalism as well. It has never been fair. Fucking deal with it. It's that simple. Take a 40% split. Offer Porter, Thurman, Danny more than fucking 1 or 2 million. Okay? Like, it's not that hard. You got all this money for Pacquiao. You don't have any money for a Sean Porter or Danny Garcia fight with Crawford? You don't have any money for that? You don't have any money for Keith Thurman? No? Like, it's not that hard. But you guys want to sit on your high horse and talk about fairness when this sport has never been fair. Like, I don't know where this like mythological ideology of boxing comes from these fans that thinks like all these fighters have to treat each other as equal and fair and equal partners in this shit. No, man, they are out for themselves. Is that easy? Hamsters are saying Danny turned down $3 million already. Yeah, because he was going to fight Spence instead. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean that's
like people like it's what I'm talking about. MC Treasure, please answer me this. If you're Danny Garcia and you got negotiations with Spence or Crawford, which one are you taking? It's always going to be Spence. Why? He's the bigger draw, which means he's more money. It is that simple.
Same reason why Crawford would take Pacquiao over anybody else, because it's the biggest money. It's the most money, right? Like Crawford seems to want one fight, and that's Pacquiao. Now that fight's not going to happen, right? But that's the fight he wants. It's the fight he wanted for years for one reason. It's the biggest money fight.
Matthew Sousa saying like unless Crawford fights do like 4 to 5 times the number that PBC fight does, then why would Spence take the fight? I don't think it needs to be 4 to 5 times bigger. I think that's way over exaggerating this need. Like he just needs to do comparable numbers. Like that's the reality. Like if Crawford booked at 300,000 pay-per-view buys, we would have seen Spence Crawford next. I guarantee it. It's not happening next because the pay-per-view didn't do that. Like it's just. Again, I don't know what fans are thinking here. Like that they've never like know what business is. They don't know like how capitalism works. They don't know how negotiations work. They don't know how drawing power works when we get to these certain matchups. I just don't get it.
So
like there's so many other matchups that these fans, because Gary, you know this. All these people listening have been listening for a long time. We know them. They know us. Like I know MC Treasure. He has said things that are far more coherent about other matchups that are similar situations. But he falls apart here because it's personal for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why people get so personally invested in these types of promoter battles and network battles or whatever it may be.
People want the fight to happen, right? And they see like millions of dollars being thrown around, so it all seems the same to them, right? So it's like, well, just take it. It's like, well, I'm not going to leave millions of dollars on the table, you know. But that, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, you're getting paid $1 million, just take it. Well, I can get millions more, or you know, like, and then like, they just see it as, well, I would fight Manny Pacquiao. I would fight Errol Spence for $3 million. Yeah, well, you can't get $4 million to fight someone else. You can't get $3 million to fight someone else, right? Like. I get it. I just saw this, like, Francisco Lindor just signed a contract worth the same thing that Tatis got with the Padres. And
thank you for mentioning what sport you're talking about, Gary.
Baseball.
Well, Padres baseball. I knew what you're talking about. I'm like, these names, are they boxers? Like, what the fuck are you talking about here, man?
Right? And he ended up getting, like, 10 years for $320 million, right? And initially, he wanted 6 years for 35 times 6, whatever that number was, right? 190 whatever million. And he doubled it. He wanted 12 years for like 32 million. And like people were saying, well, that's less money. Yeah, but it's another guaranteed 6 years of getting $30-something million a year. That's why he wants it, right? And they finally settled on 10 years for 32 million per year, right? But it's like, I understand 30 million a year for 6 years sounds great, but you know what's even better? 30 million a year for 12 years, right? Like that's a lot of money to leave on the table, and you're asking guys to leave that money on the table to make you a happy fan. It's like, I don't know if that's going to happen.
And sort of on that tangent, MC Treasure. Shout out to MC Treasure. I know like we're talking to you and like we're yelling at you, but long time listener, love you, man. Saying this is oh no, as a boxing fan, your role is to want the best fight in the division or best fights possible, not to play manager for one fighter or promotion. I think you're absolutely right, but you have to go a next step here, MC Treasure. Like you can't just say I want the best fights there is. Okay, we all want that, man, but like, how do we get there? Why aren't these fights happening? There are two very central questions that have to be asked, have to be discussed. You can't just sit here and go, oh, I want all the best fights to happen. Like, we all want the best fights to happen. Right? If I can have a magic wand and I can just say, I want these fights and this fight and that fight, man, we could do it. I would do it. I would, but we can't. So we have to deal with the material realities of what we're dealing with here, MC Treasure. The material realities here is that Crawford is not the level of draw that those PBC fighters are. Okay. That's just an objective fact. Okay. Not that he's not a draw, but he's not a draw like them or a bigger draw for sure. You might argue that he's maybe like the same drawing power as Sean Porter, I guess. You can argue that. But like he's not bigger than Keith Thurman, not bigger than Danny Garcia, not bigger than Earl Spence. Like you just can't argue against those facts. So how do we get that best fight possible, MC Treasure? How do we get Spence Crawford? The answer can't just be, oh, well, they just need to like do it. Like they just need to make it. Like Spence needs to not be a coward. Like that's not what's happening here. Like there's a business situation here. So let's figure out the problem with this business situation and get a solution here so we can get the fight. It's that's the simplicity. Okay. We know why these fights aren't happening. Okay. Because of money to a degree. Like certain one fighter wants X amount when they're only worth Y amount. Those nature. We understand that. Okay. So telling a fighter that, oh, you know, you're pound for pound number one, you deserve 50-50 or Spence, when the business is saying the exact opposite, the material reality on the ground is saying the exact opposite, it's just naivete. Like you're living in a fantasy world. You know, like unfortunately, like I know we all want the best fights possible, but how do we get those best fights possible? You know, why aren't those best fights not happening? Once we solve those questions, then we can get these awesome fights. That's the simplicity. If you pair Spence with any other guy, it doesn't generate as much as Spence or Crawford. That's why it's me logical. But see, you're wrong there.
Pacquiao does more just off the bat.
Thurman does more.
Probably. And if he went at 154, Charlo would do more too. Not that he would fight Charlo because of the same camp, but that fight would do more.
I don't know about that.
You don't know about that?
There's not enough empirical evidence, in my opinion, for that.
Okay.
But there's two right there, Thurman and Pacquiao, that empirically you cannot deny they're bigger fights than Crawford. Like just because MC Treasure, just because like we know who Crawford is, just because like Damian Lillard tweets about him, doesn't mean he's a superstar. You know, like I feel like we get fooled sometimes.
Booker or Lillard?
Oh, I love Dame. Even though he's Blazers, I'm a Laker fan, right? Like I love Dame Lillard, man. Like he's a real one. Like I fucking love Dame Lillard, man.
Dame is more versatile. He's a better ball handler. He's a better defender. Booker's a better scorer, believe it or not. But I would take Lillard between the two. He does more things.
He just has had an awful team around him. Like entire.
He's done. Look, it's rough to go through these super teams when you don't have a super team. But like they've done okay. Like they went to the conference finals.
Oh no,
1 year.
Yeah,
they've done okay.
Yeah, but I mean, he's the Charles Barkley of his era.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unfortunate, but that's just kind of like the reality, you know.
Yeah, they lost to because it was Steph. When Seth played for Portland, they played Golden State and Steph in the conference finals. So I mean, Portland, he's taken them to the conference finals. Like they've had a level of success. It's just they had Golden State. Now they have the Lakers. Like it's tough.
Quickly, MC Treasure and Frank in the chat both saying that Thurman's not bigger than Crawford. Like, what number are you proving that off of? Like, what evidence do you have? What statistics are you using to back that up? Because as far as I know, Thurman's done a far bigger viewership, far bigger pay-per-view buy rate, far bigger gate than Terrence Crawford. Like, the three metrics you can really gauge drawing power in this sport, Thurman beats him in each category. So, MC Treasure, please, I'll wait here, man. Like, I will fucking wait here. Gary's like, no, please, no. Like, what number are you basing that off of? That Thurman's not a bigger draw than Crawford.
He did 500,000 pay-per-view buys. He did, what was it, the TV rating with Danny Garcia before that?
Was the peak over 5 or over 6 million?
I mean, it's really insignificant at that point. It's that type of number.
Yeah.
Like, guys, Keith Thurman's the biggest star. Like, I'm not saying he's the better fighter. You guys know, I think Crawford, at 140 is about the perfect fighter. But Keith Thurman's the biggest star. Now, he's got the personality to back it up. Crawford doesn't. And I love Crawford, right? Like, Crawford just is that guy, right? Like, he goes in and does his talking in the ring. And he's pretty good on Twitter. But like Keith Thurman's a big personality, right? Like Keith Thurman's a trash talker. Keith Thurman's fun. Like Keith Thurman sells the fight better, and that's why. And he's taking bigger fights at 147 at the Glamour division. So that's why Keith Thurman's a big star. But Keith Thurman's a big star.
Quickly, Frank saying, but when he had one fight in how many years? A lot of fighters have had like one fight in how many years because of COVID. Two, his last fight was a massive pay-per-view event. And three, Crawford's last pay-per-view, which was his last fight. Wait, was the Brook fight pay-per-view?
No, Brook fight wasn't pay-per-view.
Because the Kron fight was so shitty?
Because the Kron fight was
and did so bad in terms of pay-per-view buy rate? Yeah. Okay. And MC Treasure saying Pacquiao did 500,000 pay-per-view buys. Thurman helped. But Pac would do that with Bud, Spence, all of them. So MC Treasure, are you saying that Pacquiao, regardless of any of these fighters, would just do 500,000 pay-per-view buys with these fighters? That, like, no matter who we're talking about, it just does the same number.
That's empirically false. I can throw names at you: Bam Bam, Brandon Rios, Chris Algieri, Jesse Vargas. None of them did 500,000.
Even like the third Tim Bradley fight, I don't think did 500,000.
It didn't. Yeah.
I think that did like 300,000 or 400,000
and change. Yeah.
That did really bad, surprisingly. Though, which one was the top rank exclusive pay per view that wasn't with HBO? Was that the Jesse Vargas one?
No, that was Chris Algieri.
Are you sure?
I think so.
I want to say
it might have been Vargas.
I want to say it was the Jesse Vargas event.
It was one of those two because both those did a really bad number compared to what Pacquiao standards.
MC Treasure, he does it with Spence and Bud. Okay, so MC Treasure, you're saying that Spence, Bud, and Thurman are equal draws off of a hypothetical opinion that you have that they all do the same pay-per-view buy rate with Pacquiao, instead of the real numbers we have, which is the long-running TV numbers that we have from them, gate revenue, pay-per-view buy rates, that show Spence and Thurman are double the draw of Terrence Crawford, at least. Like, come on, man. Like, you can't just believe things are going to happen. If all the numbers, literally all the numbers, all the metrics say it's this way, and you say, no, it's the opposite, then, dude, it's on you, man. Like, if you can't figure it out, like, I can't lead you to the water anymore. I can't help you out because clearly you just want to believe that all these guys are the same level of draw, and it doesn't matter. We can just pair them all up, and that's how it should be. When that's never how boxing's been. It's never how prize fighting has been. I don't know, man.
What do you think of? I mean, just out of curiosity, what do you think a Pacquiao Crawford would do in terms of pay-per-view buys?
It would do more than Thurman,
but not as much as Pacquiao and Spence, right?
No. I think it would do marginally more than Thurman.
Yeah.
Only because of momentum. I do think that, to Frank's point about like Thurman not being active, there's a legitimate argument to that in terms of like momentum and star power and stuff like that. But we've also seen that like star power, once you have it, is very hard and fades very slowly, right? Like Mike Tyson hasn't boxed in how many years? He just sold 1 million pay-per-view buys.
1.6 million.
At the age of like 50 something, like star power. I mean, again, I'm not comparing Thurman to Mike Tyson. That's apples and oranges, but star power is star power. Thurman's still a guy that can go and get 5 million on CBS with a big fight. You know what I mean? Like Thurman's still a guy, if he's matched up with one of these top guys, can do, 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 pay-per-view buys. Like that's not out of the question. So again, people like, I don't know what the real issue is here. Like I don't know. Like if you guys want these fights to happen, be realistic to what the obstacles are to these fights, and then you can find the solutions to those obstacles. But anyways, digressing. Gary, let's talk about fights coming up this weekend, and then we're going to hit out of this show. First up, Murjadon Akhmadaliev versus Raisuko Iwasa for the WBA and IBF Super Bantamweight titles over in Uzbekistan. Right, the invasion of the Uzbeks is happening, Gary. Also, Israel Madrimov, Shakram Giazov are on the card. Other Uzbek prospects, of course. Thoughts, Gary, on the main event and the card?
It's
a good main event.
It's a good main event. It's a hardcore main event. It's a good fight. like I said, Iwasa is the kind of guy that nobody really wants to fight, so I'm glad to see somebody's fighting him. Because, like, it's a high-risk, low-reward kind of fight. I'm trying to think if I'm crazy enough to pick Iwasa to win the fight. Is that too out there?
A little bit.
Especially since he's probably going to have to score a knockout because of where it's in. It's in Uzbekistan, right?
Uzbekistan.
He's probably going to need a knockout to win it. He's probably going to need a knockout to get a draw, kind of, so to speak. All right.
The only hope you have is that it's been a long layoff for Akhmadiliev.
But it's been a long layoff for both of them, right?
I thought you lost.
Maybe
Oh no, you're right. No, it's been. You're right. Okay, it's technically a month longer layoff for Iwasa. But long layoff for each. Maybe they both look a little bit rusty. Maybe Iwasa can catch him like that. But Akhmadiliev, let's be honest here. His performance against Daniel Roman was
good. It's good.
Insanity, Gary. Like it was one of those performances that it's just a light bulb on everyone's head. Like, oh, this guy's now the guy in some fashion. Now, since then, right, Stephen Fulton has come on and beat up Angelo Leo the way he did. And now I think there's a little bit of a parity between these guys on who's really the best guy in the division. But Akhmadiliev is a prodigy. Like his hand speed, his athleticism, his power, his shot selection, his aggression. Like he's a fantastic fighter, man. He's on that like Julio Cesar Martinez like violence list for me. Not as high as Martinez, but anytime we see Akhmadiliev fight, it's a violent affair. Iwasa is a fun blood and guts fighter, a great gatekeeper to the top 5, but kind of a gatekeeper to the top 5. Akhmadiliev is something special, and I think we're going to see it again on Saturday. I think Akhmadiliev is probably going to score a late TKO stoppage, if I had to guess. But Iwasa is tough, so it could go the distance. I think no matter what, it's going late for sure. You know, like the closest, the earliest the stoppage could happen is probably the 10th round. And this is probably going to be a sleeper fight of the year. Like I'm probably going to guess that as well. But regardless, I'm excited for this matchup. I'm really excited to see what's Akhmadiliev.
Iwasa, I thought his knockout percentage was a little bit higher than it was. I thought he was more of a knockout guy.
Yeah, I mean, hey, 56% is not bad.
No, it's not. It's not. I just thought it was higher than that. All right, you know what? I'm gonna go out on the ledge. I'm gonna take Iwasa on points.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. He's coming off. I mean, he's not. It's not like it was his last fight. It was the Zapala's fight. And before that, he beat Cesar Juarez, who everybody beats. But that's like, okay, it's a good stay busy fight. And then he beat the Palas. Like the MJ fight against Roman. It's a good performance. Can he replicate it against a blood and guts guy like Iwasa? I don't know. I'm gonna like. Logic tells me that MJ should win. But I'm looking at this fight. Iwasa's a tough guy. MJ still only had how many fights? 8 fights? 10 fights? He hasn't had that many fights. I'm going to take Iwasa. I'm going to take him on points. I know it's going to get to a scorecard. Iwasa's going to win, and they're going to take the decision away from him. But I'm going to go say Iwasa wins. Is this on DAZN? Do we have access to this fight?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes, it's on DAZN. Yes, it is. Okay, you're taking Iwasa. I'm taking Akhmadiliev. I'm excited for this matchup. Also this weekend, another really exciting matchup. I wish Rob was on. Jamel Herring versus Carl Frampton in the UK on Channel 5 in the UK. Oh, sorry. Not in the UK. In the UAE. It was supposed to be, I think, in Ireland, right? I think it was supposed to be, was not Northern Ireland? It was supposed to be Northern Ireland?
Belfast, yeah.
Yeah, Northern Ireland. They moved it for a variety of reasons. And I gotta say, this is one of those fights where it's pretty obvious to me who should be the favorite, even though they're not the favorite. Jamel Herring should be the favorite here.
Wait, Frampton's a betting favorite?
Yes.
Guys, if you want to make easy money.
Not a huge underdog, though. I think it's like they're close to even. Look for some odds. Look for some prop bets. Look for like good plus money on decision win.
Yeah, whatever the odds are for Herring to take a decision, I would just bet on that because it's going to be paying well. Like if they fought 10 times, 8 times out of 10, Herring would win by split, would win by decision, and twice Frampton would win by decision. Like Herring should win this fight by decision. Like that's kind of the obvious pick. I don't know why. I guess I don't know. People love betting on Frampton.
Frampton does have a better career. Obviously, has a better win, or better wins. I should say, not just win, better win.
Yeah, he does.
But the issue is that he even admits that this is pretty much his last fight. He's had hand injuries. He's a little bit undersized for this division. Demar Herring's big for this division. He knows how to use his length, his reach, his height. But I want Frampton to win. Like I've been a Frampton fan, low-key, for a long time. I think, he's one of those guys that's always put on a good show. Always has tried to, right? Like he's never been a dull fighter. And I think he's a fun fighter to watch in terms of his style. His fast hand speed style, his flurries. I've always liked Frampton's style, but I see Herring jabbing him up, keeping him at distance, controlling the range, the tempo, the pace, and win the decision pretty handily, like an 8-4, 9-3 sort of decision, and be the biggest win of Herring's career, without a doubt. Gary, your thoughts?
No, I see it exactly the way. That's exactly how I see it. I think I like Frampton. I think if Frampton wins, because I think like if his career ended today, Frampton's on the Hall of Fame bubble on the outside. This win could put him in the bubble, right? Because it's one more big win at the end of his career against the world champion. But I think at this size, at this weight, at this stage of his career, Herring's too sharp and too quick, and Herring will win enough rounds. I think 8-4, 9-3. I think it's a competitive fight. It's a good fight, but Herring's skills carry the day, and he takes what should be a competitive but clear decision.
Yes, I pretty much agree with you. Also on the card, Donnie Nieta is making his comeback after 4 years. 4 years, and his last win, to piss off Heath Farley in the chat, was against Kazuto Ioka. That was his last win, man, in 2018.
Really fun fight that was, too. That was a good fight.
Yes, in Macau. Who's he fighting again? Let me see. Pablo Carrillo. Do I know him? Who's he fought? No one that I... Oh,
he's a Colombian guy, right?
Okay, way back in the day, and Luis Concepcion, way back in the day. Yeah, I think Nieta should win this one for sure. And I like Donnie. Donnie is a fun fighter. I don't know anyone else on this card, though. Oh, Keyshawn Davis. Sorry.
Keyshawn Davis is on the card. And isn't Tyrone McKenna on the card against an undefeated prospect?
Oh, he is. He's on the B side.
Yeah.
Sorry, on Box right here. Yes, he is. Against Zakosh Turov.
It's not a name that I'm familiar with, so I'm thinking McKenna. Because McKenna's not
Kazakh
bad,
fighter.
Right?
No, he's not. No, he's a good fighter.
And I've not heard of this guy that he's fighting, so I'm thinking McKenna can make this interesting. And then obviously Keyshawn Davis is taking a big. Keyshawn Davis is fighting a guy with a lot of fights. What's the record on the guy that Keyshawn Davis is fighting?
Richmond Ashley is his name. He's 10-1.
That's what I'm saying. Like this is it's aggressive. That's aggressive. They moved not they did because he's not a Matchroom fighter, but Matchroom moved up Otha Jones real quick, and it didn't work out well.
This could be a trap fight here. Out of Richmond Ashley's from Ghana. Out of his 10 wins, 9 of them are via KO. I'm excited now. Watch him get knocked out. Davis, wouldn't that be something?
I don't think that's going to happen, but this is not an easy. This is not what you would think is a typical opponent. Maybe they're paying him to take a dive. There was a great Ghanaian fighter who I liked a lot named Josh Clotty, who was paid a bunch of money to not throw any punches against Manny Pacquiao.
Allegedly.
Me and other people have alleged that. Something's not right about that fight.
Oh, man. Just wait till people realize that Manny Pacquiao's calves are fake. Just wait till that. Wait till people find out that's all plastic surgery. Just
Got
wait, man.
implants.
You think I'm lying, man?
There's an episode of Entourage where Johnny Drama wants calf implants. He's going around following this guy. This guy's like, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "Is they fake or they implants?" And the guy's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" He's like, "Your calves, dude. You can tell me the truth. Are they implants?"
Yes, dude. You guys, like, I'm serious, man. Shout out to Manny Pacquiao's fake calves. I mean, if I could get those and I had the money, I would too, man. I would too, I guess. But Gary, I think that's it for topics and fights, man. Anything we're missing? Any big topics out there? People in the chat? Anything we're missing this week?
De La Hoya back in
talk about it. Let's talk.
De La Hoya will be back in Dallas, which I'm thankful for because he's fought in Texas a couple of times, but never in Dallas that I'm aware of. And if this is real, if this happens, I'm gonna go. Like,
you sick fucker. What does the matter with you? You know what? The only fight that I actually am somewhat interested in is like a Sergio Martinez like style fight. You know, like two really old guys fighting. You know, like the Tyson Roy Jones thing. Like I was cool with that because it was two old guys fighting, make some money, like whatever, man. Like if you want to get brain damage and make $10 million, that's your prerogative. But damn, I don't know. Oscar to me is someone that like he needs help, in my opinion. Like he always seems to be like slowly like falling off the wagon consistently. Like you know, like Gary, like there's people that like have fallen off the wagon, and there's people that are falling off the wagon.
Yeah.
Oscar is always like perpetually like looking like he's falling off the wagon. Never that he's always like completely falling off or that he's on the wagon. No, it's always like he's like mid-fall every time. So like the idea of him like fighting just seems gross to me. Like it just doesn't feel appealing. I feel like that guy needs therapy more than boxing.
He does, but a lot of people aren't going to go to therapy. And in all seriousness, a lot of people aren't going to go to therapy, so
yeah.
He's going to do this, you know?
Oh, that's 100% the case. Especially like in Hispanic communities, man, like therapy is not preached at as like a normal thing. You know, like you're weird if you go to therapy and shit like that. Frank in the chat is saying like, how about the YouTubers versus TikTokers event? I have no idea what you're talking about, Frank. Is there some exhibition boxing event with YouTubers and TikTokers? Because I will let you know this right now. I don't have TikTok, and I know for a fact Gary doesn't because look at him. Like
what, people with great hair don't go on TikTok?
No, old people don't.
Great hair people.
They shouldn't. If you're above the age of 35, you should not have TikTok.
I'm only 37. I'm not that far above the age of
35. You're not. Hey, but just like fucking amusement park rides, man. If you're below the limit, fuck, man. Shit out of luck. You can't get on the roller coaster, you know?
Get your shoe lift. We'll get you that extra inch or two.
Dude, hat. Get the hat and put
the hat
paper in it. Hat, shoes. I used to do all that shit, man, because I was like that kid that wanted to go on roller coasters. My Uncle David, rest in peace. Shout out to Uncle David. Miss him. He would do that. He actually bought me like platform shoes just to go to amusement parks so I can get on the ride with them.
Yeah, because at that point, if it's the 2 inches, you're so close. Like it's parents' call. I'm gonna put your platform shoes or not, or cool uncle's call.
Like LA, like we have like great amusement parks here. Like to not want to not go to it, like come on, what the fuck? And plus, like I hated always like the kids' rides at amusement parks, even as a kid. Like don't put me on Small World. Like don't do that. Like I don't want to go to like Snoopy Land or whatever at Knott's Berry Farm. Like let me go to the roller coasters. Let me go to like that shit. That's what I want. You in the chat saying TikTok should never be used by anyone over 25, not 35. Probably right about that. But no, I have no idea what this TikTok or YouTube event is. Gary, I think that's it for.
Yeah. I don't know what that is, but I thought TikTok was going to get banned, which I'm against, unless it stops this fight from coming off. Then I'm all for it. Then ban it. What happened to that? Wasn't TikTok going to be banned, or that was going to be shut down in the U.S. or something like that?
I don't remember that.
This is not that long ago. This was like during the pandemic. because I didn't hear of
What-
TikTok before the pandemic.
What reason were they giving to shut it down?
Something to do with the Chinese party. Trump was still Trump was president.
Oh, I do vaguely remember this.
I don't really remember the ins
Yes.
and outs.
Yes, I remember this now. Okay. I want to say, because I think China is like a minority investor. Like there's some Chinese companies that are minority investors into TikTok. And of course Donald Trump wanted to shut it down for the embargoes, right?
Is that okay? I
think it had to do with that. I want to say that's what it had to do with. But no, I think it's still here, Gary. It was never blocked. It's fine. Gary, final thoughts, man.
It is April 1st. Oh, we didn't do an April Fool's Day. April 1st, 2021. Ivan Calderon is in the Boxing Hall of Fame.
You want to talk about Marco Antonio Barrera, his comeback?
Yeah, let's talk about Barrera's comeback.
Which is not an April Fool's Day joke. That's really happening, even though they had their press conference on April Fool's. Whoever's idea was that should be fired, by the way.
Barrera should fight De La Hoya. Because you'll have the guy that was the Mexican hero against the guy that was supposed to, who really wasn't.
I'm down with that. Absolutely. Let's get big old Prince Nassim back. Let's do Barrera Hamed too. Come on, it'd be great.
Hamed should fight Hatton in a battle of fat guys.
Yes. No, that's perfect.
You got a junior welter and a featherweight. What weight should they fight at?
If I'm like a UK millionaire or billionaire, I have like millions to spend. I'm offering Ricky Hatton and Prince Nassim a lot of money for an exhibition in my backyard. Like, why not? Like, that's fucking amazing. That made my day. I just imagining that fight, Gary. So good. Anyways, back to you, Gary. Final thoughts.
Ivan Calderon's still not in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Let's make that change to class 2021. Let's get Iron Boy in the Hall of Fame. Texas is still not a country. Let's make Texas a country again. From Texas to the world. Thank you and God bless.
What's the update on that, Gary?